Try to present sort of the move from humanism to post-humanism, past, present, and the future, and show some of the humanist traces. I'm very much looking forward to what he has to say.
Thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you, everybody. So before we start, I need my PowerPoint, of course.
Oh yeah, where is it?
It's just here.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I just need
Okay, so here we are. As you know, as we said, humanism, not post-humanism this time, not transhumanism, but just humanism. Past, present, and future. Is there a future for humanism? I do think so, and we're going to discuss this. So first of all, let's try to think about history, no? The big history, humanism, the role of the role of humanism within this big, huge time frame, no? 13.8 billion years. So this is the time, the history of our universe, actually, no? And so humanism just accounts for a very small fraction of it. We see here, so the start of the civilization. Okay, so 4 million years ago, really, the civilization starts. And not really the civilization, but you have the appearance of the Australopithecus, the Australopithecus, and then the Homo habilis erectus, Homo sapiens, and again, so you have an even smaller fraction of time for the development of this. 5,000 years ago, so this is really when human history starts, so this is really the start of the civilization, the human civilization. And again, if we consider the small amount of time, of years, of the development of the Renaissance and humanism within this large time frame, we can really think of the specialty of this period of time, this period in history. So we have really the development of the heart of so many beautiful and interesting and important things, the birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli, but also the David by Michelangelo. So this happens just really in a few years, in comparison to the large development in time of the history of the universe, from the initial singularity of the universe. Now, speaking of humanism in a more developed way, in a more specific way, this book, the Homo Deus, by Yuval Noah Harari, So we have a specific description of humanism here. I'm not sure whether we can really agree with the description, with the representation that of humanism this important author actually gives in his book. He speaks of the humanist revolution, of a humanist revolution. But what type of humanist revolution actually this was? The two main points and elements in this humanist revolution are, according to the author, to Harari, the end of cosmic plans and the death of God. Now, if we really look at the history of the Renaissance and humanism, we find that these two elements are actually missing. And I think, and I will propose some data for that these two elements are also missing in the present day, and they will be missed also in the future. First of all, so let's start with some history, some past of humanism. The humanist religion, says Yuval Noah Harari, worships humanity and expects humanity to play the part that God played in Christianity and Islam, and that the laws of nature played in Buddhism and Taoism. According to humanism, humans must draw from within their inner experiences not only the meaning of their own lives, but also the meaning of their entire universe. Now, if we look at the origin of humanism to Francis Petrarch, for example, now we are in the 14th century, this is really the beginning of humanism. We see how some points that are described by Harari are actually missing. No? Very briefly, in the nice text by Petrarch, The Ascent of Mont Ventoux, is describing his ascent of this mountain, which has also a symbolic meaning, and he says, "Today I climbed the highest mountain in this region, which is not improperly called Ventosum, windy. The only motive for my ascent was the wish to see what so great a height had to offer." So he wants to see what is, out there, basically, no? This, of course, is very difficult. No, it's a very difficult climbing, and he is referring to classical authors in order to know how to overcome these difficulties. So to Virgil says, "Persistent labor conquers all." To Ovid, who says, "To which is not enough, you must yearn with ardent eagerness to gain your end." So the classical tradition, but also to Christianity, to the Christian tradition, and more specifically to St. Augustine's Confession. While my thoughts were divided thus, Petrarch says, "It occurred to me to look at Augustine's Confessions, that I always keep with me. I opened the little volume, small inside but infinitely sweet, with the intention of reading whatever came to hand. And the first words my eyes fell upon were," this is the quote from St. Augustine, "And men go about admiring the high mountains and the mighty waves of the sea and the wide sweep of rivers and the sound of the ocean and the movement of the stars, but themselves they consider not." So this is already a nice hint to consider, no, the role and the importance of your own self, of your own individuality, which is there. But of course, the individuality of people, the self, is important from this point of view, from the point of view of Christian humanism, as a reflection towards God as well. No, so you have this kind of the self and God. Of course, St. Augustine said, "Redinte ipsum," so it's important to go back inside yourself, into yourself, in order to find, the general meaning, the general meaning of life, the general meaning of the universe. So this is a kind of cosmic plan, of course, and also God is there. So this is something true for humanism. Again, Noah Harari writes, "As the source of meaning and authority was relocated from the sky to human feelings," and this is true, "the nature of the entire cosmos changed. The exterior universe, either teeming with God, muses, fairies, and gods, became empty space." This is, I don't think this is really true. So we see how the interiority, the inner self, acquires really importance, from this point of view, to give meaning to one's own life, to give meaning also to the existence, to the universe, to history, to time, basically. But the entire universe, the sky, the universe, does not become really empty. So something is still there, a meaning is still there. Already in his Science as a Vocation, Max Weber described modernity as a world robbed of gods, writing that the fate of our times is characterized, above all, by the disenchantment of the world. This, he suggests, it means that one can, in principle, master all things by calculation. So this is something that we already find there, right? And however, we see nowadays, especially historians, highlight this, how religion, but also magic, also superstition, are far from being absent, from society, from history. I mean, so all these principles, all these elements are still here, are still out there, are still present from a social point of view. And if you look at the data, you will see that, for instance, according to the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate of Georgetown University, between 1980 and 2015, the global Catholic population has grown by 57%, while by the year 2050, Christians worldwide will grow from 2.17 billions to 2.92 billions. Muslims even more, so they will grow even more. And also the other religions will keep growing. So I cannot really see how God is dead. From this point of view, I don't really see the death of God. I don't really see the death or the end of cosmic plans. So I think that there is some elements that you find in humanism, and there are elements that you still find today developing, really present there, out there. No, if we consider the pale blue dot, this famous picture image that we have from this space, that is the planet Hub. So you see really how small it is, how small we all are. If you try to compare, so we are all together. We are there. So it's really difficult not to go outside yourself to find a meaning. Or it's very difficult, I think, and this was difficult for the humanists, not to find a meaning by trying to relate yourself with. Then we can define what is something else actually is. And this is what you find also, of course, in the great Renaissance authors, Marsilio Ficino, Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, Leonardo da Vinci, Leon Battista Alberti. So you always find these elements, really, the importance of the self, the importance of the human being, but also the role of a cosmic plan, of something that goes beyond. So humanism is really all about that. It's all about that. Also, so the Vitruvian man, of course, is a nice representation of the proportion of the Renaissance, the proportion of the man, the fact that the man is at the center of the picture right now, but also, so they are still looking for a kind of context, which is always and still a universal context for the man. So when we think about the Renaissance, we should, I think, really keep in mind this, that the man is not alone by himself or herself, but Renaissance men, humanist men, they try to see how human civilization and how the self fits within a larger picture. But now, so let's try to say something more about this. Of course, the Studio Humanitatis, we already know this. So the importance of the classical tradition, it goes back already at the times of Cicero and Gellius. It's already there. The Artes Liberales, and then the addition of other disciplines, precisely during the Renaissance, history, Greek poetry, and moral philosophy with ethical questions. And these were added during the Renaissance. So we have all these elements. And when we think about humanism, we should also think about the various applications that the humanistic thought had within that specific civilization, within the civilization of the Renaissance. So they were very attentive to political problems, to civic problems, to ethical problems, and they were at the same time very attentive about universal principles, universal meanings. So you always have this kind of relationship between the human and the something that goes really beyond human. Of course, for the major part, this This was then a Christian faith, the elements of Christian faith and Christian thought, but not only. You also find other types of metaphysical elements, like in Pico della Mirandola, different elements. So this is just to say something about the past of humanism, and how when we think of post-humanism, we should probably bear in mind what humanism really was. I mean, at the origin, at least in the Italian tradition. So this was humanism. But what about humanism today? Can we really say that humanism is about to die? That it's possible to overcome humanism so easily? I mean, it's a matter of choice, I think. If you want, yes, you can do that. I mean, but other people have different, different ideas, basically. So we live in democracy, so you have several different ideas. One of those people is Brunello Cucinelli. I'm not sure whether you are familiar with this name, with this guy. So he's a great businessman, entrepreneur. Brunello Cucinelli is considered to be the king of Kashmir, so he's exporting so much textile industries, such a big, portion of the Italian economy, and he's really one of the best from this point of view, at least in this segment. But so he also had the idea of really establishing an enterprise which should be, according to him, a humanistic enterprise. So he, he's a scholar of Renaissance philosophy himself. So he wanted really to establish a different business environment rooted on the principles of humanism, And so here you have some quotations from his speeches. We need a new humanism, he says. A humanism made of sensitivity, awareness, and seeking dignity. So these are some of the principles that he believes in. My dream of a lifetime has always been to make human work more human, arguing that work enhances human dignity. And this approach goes hand in hand with a new orientation of the economy based on the enhancement of the human being as a means to improve the company and to attach to it a meaning that goes beyond their profit. So we really find some elements that are core characteristic of certain points of view that you find in the Renaissance, maybe, and specifically in the Italian Renaissance. If you look at the figures, you see that his business is going very, very well. So you can see here from this number, so it's growing so much. So this means that even today and even tomorrow, probably, a humanistic point of view can offer you chances for development, at least in some segments. So of course technology is important. I'm sure it's important also for him, for his productive processes, but yet there is something that goes beyond. So this is the core of humanism, And this is true at least for Brunello Cucinelli. I'm not sure how. Okay, so again, Brunello Cucinelli and his humanistic enterprise, I'm convinced that human dignity is restored solely through the rediscovery of the conscience. Again, some other humanistic principles here. Work elevates human dignity and the emotional ties that derive from it. On my daily path, I heed the words of the great people from the past. So these are all the people to whom he likes to refer, actually, from Socrates to Seneca, Kant, Marcus Aurelius, Alexander the Great, Saint Benedict of Norcia as well. So I believe in the quality and beauty of handcrafted products. I don't think there can be any quality without humanity. Again, here. So humanity, it's really there. So when we think of post-humanity, I think it's really beautiful to think about progress. But humanity has so many different and beautiful elements that probably it's worthwhile to try to keep considering. Sometimes. So Brunello Cucinelli offers an idea for this. I love the mild mysticism permeating my beloved Umbria, of course. He comes from Umbria, from a small town near Perugia, Solomeo, which he actually restored completely, adding beautiful buildings, adding a theater, adding a beautiful library, for the workers, basically, So this is the humanistic enterprise of Cucinelli, and he likes also to place all the different sentences from humanists, on the walls of this village that is completely restored. This one is from Leon Battista Alberti, and on the importance of virtue. But if we consider also another example, Tim Cook, for example, and his speech at the MIT, I'm sure that you are familiar with this. You already had the chance to read or to listen to this discourse, to this speech. Also, Tim Cook, really, which is the head of one of the most technological companies, I think, in the world, right? But he is placing the accent, on the other hand, on the importance and on the role of humanistic principles, right? So he says, recalling actually Steve Jobs, as Steve once said, technology alone is not enough. It is technology married with the liberal arts. So again, you see this link with the Renaissance tradition, educational tradition, liberal arts married with the humanities that make our heart sing. Whatever you do in your life and whatever we do at Apple, we must infuse it with the humanity that each of us is born with. So I wanted to give you these two examples, but examples could be actually multiplied, from a certain point of view. Just to say that, when we speak, when we discuss the possibilities of post-humanism, transhumanism, we still should consider, and I think we should. First of all, we should consider how that is not the only solution. It's a solution, of course, that will be the future for sure. But there are people who are thinking something else, basically, and they are working with other principles, or maybe they are just trying to humanize the process of post-humanization, like that. Okay, so basically, I wanted to say this, but I also find something interesting in what Julian Huxley wrote. The human species can, if it wishes, transcend itself. Not just sporadically, an individual here in one way, an individual there in another way, but in its entirety as humanity. We need a name for this belief, perhaps transhumanism will serve. Man remaining man, but transcending himself, by realizing new possibilities of and for his human nature. So this is something also that we can discuss, to what extent the post-human and the transhuman will remain human, and how much it will be just post. But if it's post, then what it is. That's it. Thank you.
And you make sort of the distinction between Cucinelli and Cook.
Yeah.
But did you present them this Cook also as a version of humanism? Because he actually talked about the marriage of liberal arts and technology. Marriage means now that's actually moving beyond the humanist spaces, because here you unite. It's no longer, the human, which is something separate from the world, but technology becomes an integral part. So this is no longer humanism, from my point of view. Because when technology becomes an integral part of human entity, it's no longer the view that the human is separate from the other world. So how would you respond to that?
So this is an interesting point. I don't see really a separation, from this point of view. So you can have technology, the development of technology, with humanism as well. So I think it's the same thing. Humanity keeps developing. So if you look at our past history, so this is just the natural course of human development. But what Tim Cook actually is saying is that while we develop as humans, as human beings, we should not forget to be precisely that, human being. And so we should keep with us the best of our intellectual, cultural conquests. I mean, and probably humanism is one of those. I mean, I think that we can agree on that. I mean, it's so beautiful, no? When something is beautiful, when you look at art, if something is so beautiful, it means that there is something to it. So why we should get rid of that? No? So the robots are nice, are important, are useful, but they are not so beautiful, maybe. No? I don't know. So I would like to keep both, like Tim Cook says.
There's a lot more to be said about that. In particular, the notion of humanism and how far that implies a specific ontology. But we've run out of time and we'll continue the debate in the breaks. Many thanks again for that highly relevant presentation.